welcome to the Technical Staff and Theatre Workers podcast. It's the podcast in which I talk to people who work backstage in the technical theatre industry about how they got in, their experiences, and any advice they can give to anyone getting in. This is episode 3 of season 2. A big thank you to everyone who's downloaded the show, everyone who's listening to the show. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know who's interested in theatre and those who aren't interested in theatre, because it might make them interested in theatre. Yes, thank you so much for all the downloads. It's been really good so far, so really enjoying it. And without further ado, let's get on to our next guest. And with my guest at this time, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and what is your current job title?
Hi, my name is Nicki Barrie, and I'm currently the Deputy Stage Manager at the Book of Mormon in the West End. Mormon. Freudian slip.
The Book of Mormon. How did you get into theatre, Nicki?
I started as a youngster dancing and doing acting and stuff like that.
Oh, performer.
And then when I got to college, I did a BTEC, and that's when I started to get interested in the backstage side of stuff. And ended up sort of leaning more towards that when we were doing our productions at college. So then went on to do a HND in theatre and media production, and the rest is history.
What college did you go to?
I started at Hull College and did a BTEC in Performing Arts.
Excellent.
Sang up for Cry For Me Argentina in the round robin.
Nice.
And then I did a HND at Newcastle College.
Ah, Newcastle and Hull. 2 colleges that I've contacted, I think.
2 classics.
Neither of them replied. Why did you choose to go into the backstage side of theatre?
There was a point when I was 15 that I still wanted to perform. But back in the dark old days, I couldn't get contact lenses for my eyes.
Right.
And you can't be a professional dancer wearing glasses because they come off when you're dancing.
Fair point.
And that's kind of when I really sort of started looking at other opportunities and ways of doing it. And I'm glad I did that, because now I can eat what I want and drink what I want, and I don't have to look a certain way to do my job.
Fair point. Well, I suppose that I guess you can't do that anymore now anyway, can you? Because that would be like ocular discrimination, wouldn't it?
Probably.
Yeah. Can't tell somebody they can't dance.
But these days I can wear contact lenses anyway, so it would be okay.
So you'd be okay. So you can nip on stage when you need to. What was your first job in theatre, backstage? My
first job was Deputy Stage Manager on a small tour of Glass Menagerie, directed by Bram Blessed.
Awesome.
And starring his wife Hildegard Neal.
Ace.
It was a really small tour, and it was with somebody that I'd been at college with. Her family were doing it. Yeah. So it was, I suppose in a way, it was a really good one to start with, because we were going to a lot of small venues and doing most of the things ourselves, and it was a prime learning situation, shall we say.
Good. Well, touring is a learning situation in itself, but when it's a small tour, small family-run tour, it's going to be very, very much a learning curve.
I did learn, yeah, definitely.
Good. A list of other jobs that you've had. Not all of them, you have to give me that, because you've done a lot. I know you've been around.
Yes. I've been very lucky in that I've managed to do most genres of theatre, actually, through my career. So I've done West End, I've done Young Frankenstein and the Scottsboro Boys, which started at the Young Vic. I think that's one of the all-time favourites. I've toured with Matthew Bourne's New Adventures. I have done a couple of plays at the Hampstead Theatre over the years. I loved doing Jekyll and Hyde, which was a brand new dance production by Drew McConey, the McConey Company. I've known Drew for a long time, so I did some of his really early pieces as well. I've also done one opera in Norway, which at least now I know I would never do again.
Was it in Norwegian?
It was in whatever.
I suppose you can't even tell what language it's in most of the time.
No, it was. I think it was a really famous one.
Right.
It was a tough gig as well. It was a tough gig because they do stage management differently to us over there, so it was a bit of a weird one.
Right.
But yes, I do a lot of stuff for Sadler's Wells as well. Quite often I'm the girl they come to at last minute jobs where I literally go in on tech day with a show and a company I've never met before, and then run and call the show and stuff.
Excellent. What would you say your favourite job was? Zorro, obviously.
Oh, yes.
It's the tour
I missed out Zorro.
The tour of Zorro.
I did indeed miss out Zorro. But that is not my favourite job. There are many, really. It's hard to say. Scottsboro Boys was incredible because it's an incredible piece of theatre and told a really important story. And we were lucky enough to do that twice. I also absolutely loved the New Adventures tour of Carman. I think that's one of Matt Bourne's best pieces, in my humble opinion. I loved that one. And I think I'm pretty happy now being at the Book of Mormon as well.
Oh, that's a political answer, if I ever heard one.
It's not, though. It's actually the truth.
Oh, good. All right, now, before I ask my next question, let's veer off a little bit. You're the deputy stage manager. For those people who don't know, what would be the difference between a stage manager, a deputy stage manager, and an assistant stage manager?
So, an assistant stage manager is where you would generally start your stage management career, and that will involve being in the wing, backstage. So we normally, depending on the size of show, here at the Book of Mormon we have two, so we have one either side of the stage. They look after that wing, they make sure that everything is happening when it's supposed to, they look after the props, and that side of things. So you quite often have ASMs who will specialise in props, and then they look after that. And then we also have ASM book covers, who are basically the deputy stage manager's understudy as such. So the deputy stage manager is the one that calls the show, and that means that in a musical, for example, you will have the script and the score, and that prompt copy, as it's known, contains all of the cues. So it contains the lighting cues, the sound cues, if there's any, fly cues, automation cues, and it's the DSM's responsibility to coordinate the technical side of the show. So everybody, each department could just have a go themselves if they think that, but the DSM is there to coordinate it. So if cues happen together, that they always happen at the same time. And then moving on from that, you then have the stage manager, who is overall responsible for the rest of the stage management team and for what happens on stage. So if there's ever any technical problems or anything like that, the stage manager is the one who would call a show stop, would coordinate with all the departments on what we need to do to get the show up and running and things, so they manage that side of it. For me, they're all very, very different roles.
Yeah.
And I would like the job title essentially to change to show caller for me,
yes,
because I don't want to be a stage manager.
Oh, right, okay, that's fine.
And the levels of responsibility are very similar in how important the different resposibilities are that the two jobs have, but they don't necessarily roll one into another.
Yeah, because essentially as a DSM, as a show caller, you're running the show. Certainly when the show is running as it should do, you're running the show. Yeah. It's only when there's an issue, when you have to stop, that then the stage manager really comes into play. Yeah,
and even then, it's teamwork to a degree, because the stage manager will be taking care of the physical things that are happening on the stage and that need to be dealt with, whereas DSM, I will then be working out where we need to pick up from. I'll talk to whoever's on the sound desk, I'll talk to the MD, and we work out where we're going to pick up from and how we do that, and then as a whole team, we then coordinate starting the show again.
It's also a nice thing. It's nice to have somebody so people can realise that you don't have to have an aspiration to be a stage manager. You know, when you start if you just want to go up to a certain point, you can go up to a certain point, and that's fine. Yeah, and there's not that many of us around, I don't think, of a certain age, who are still show calling, but that is the job that I love, and that role is so completely different to stage manager and company manager that for me, it's not about moving up the ladder. Good. Now, being a female origin and female presenting, and northern, have you ever had any issues in the industry of people holding you back, or anything like that?
Only ever people taking the piss out of my accent. That's generally about as far as it goes. I honestly don't feel like I have. I mean, maybe I have not been aware of it, that I've not sort of noticed it. But I think because stage management, there is actually a lot of women in stage management. I think because of our natural organisational skills and quite often our ability to do more than one thing at once.
Also, I find that approachability. I think people, certainly cast members, are more likely to approach a female member of the stage management team than a male member of the stage management if they have an issue. Yeah,
I think that's a fair point. I think there are exceptions to the rule on that. I have to say our company manager, Dan Madsen, is wonderful, and I think the company and the cast feel really comfortable talking to him about things. But there's definitely an element of the caring side of things that is possibly stronger in a lot of women, female presenting, than it is in men.
Yeah, fair point. Very good. Good. What would you say are the pros and cons of working in this industry?
Oh, so many of both. One of the cons is how often you can be out of work, especially for me. Before coming here, really, I've done an awful lot of short contracts, so 3 or 4 months at a time. So as soon as you start a job, you're thinking about the end of the job. The pro of that is that you can also take a break when you want in between, and the variety is massive, as you know, my career has sort of shown.
Wow. The joys of working...
noisy front of house. It's always the front of house stuff.
The joys of recording in a working theatre.
I know. And I think, cons-wise, it can be difficult if your social circle or the majority of your friends work outside the industry.
Yep.
Because, obviously, we do most of the time opposite hours to everybody else. But the pros are that we then, a lot of the time, have our days to ourselves, and we come in and do the show on a night, and
absolutely,
and we go home. So it kind of feels like there is both sides to pretty much everything. Yes,
it is a very pro and con industry.
Yeah, and you form. I mean, especially when you're on tour, the way you form families on tours can be really special, because you're all out in Stockport together with one pub to go to. I've been there.
Yeah. Billingham.
No, Billingham Forum. Smells of chlorine. But in the West End... It does, smells of chlorine.
It does.
But in the West End, it tends to be a lot more where people settle, because it is where you can have a bit more stability in your life in theatre.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, it's like, showdown, coat on, everybody's out to get the train.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it is an interesting one. I think... with the touring side of it especially, you meet people and then you'll go away and do something else, and they'll do something else, and then 5 years later you'll see them again, and it's like just seeing somebody you've not seen for a couple of days. And
I think bonds that you form can be incredibly strong,
especially on certain shows, because if the harder a show is to do, Zorro, the harder a show is, I think the more strong a bond that you form with people, because you have to form that bond in order to do the show.
To get through your day-to-day. Yeah, and I remember when I sort of first started out, one of my first major tours was the Full Monty, which was brilliant, and we had so much fun. And at the end of that, I cried, because I was really worried that I was never going to see anybody again, and that period was... But one of my best friends is from that job, and then over the years I discovered that the people that really matter are the ones that stick around.
Yeah.
So you can have a lovely time with the whole company, but those ones that you really need and are important in your life are the ones that will stick around, and the others you say hi to when you see them in town.
Yeah, and you've always got that. Do you remember when we did this? Side to it.
So many of those stories.
Do you remember that? Do you remember this?
So many.
Well, maybe that's a different podcast. What would you say is a common misconception of anybody who's getting into the industry?
What do you mean? A misconception of what
they think they're getting into, as opposed to what they're actually getting into.
Ooh. I think a lot of people think, and to a degree it is, that theatre is a very open community. It's a very open industry, and it's very comfortable with anyone and everything.
Right.
And I don't necessarily that's true completely. It is like any workplace.
Yes.
You know, there is... You get the difficult directors who think the way to get the best work out of people is to be mean, or to break people down, to build them up again and shout. And that people are accepting of everybody. And I think we are a lot more accepting than a lot of industries because of the creative manner of what we do. But it is like any other workplace in a lot of ways. We just get to put glitter on every day or something.
It's fair enough.
It's hard. And I find that one quite tough because of dancing from a youngster and stuff, I've just always been around it, so I don't really know what other people think it is.
Right, okay. That's fair enough.
Makes sense?
No, absolutely makes sense. Absolutely. What advice do you have to anybody who wants to get into this industry?
Don't.
I was waiting for someone to say that.
Was I the first one to say that?
So far, yeah.
No, it's my advice, or some advice is, you have to love it. You do have to love it, because in the West End the money is good. In a lot of the jobs it isn't. And the antisocial hours that we do, and the pressures that can be put on you sometimes. I think you have to love theatre. If you're at college and by the time you come into the end of college you've not got a job lined up, don't panic. These things happen. It's just going to take you. It can take time. It can take real time. But if you want it, it will be there in the end. But also, don't ever see yourself as a failure if you decide that it isn't for you, because it isn't for everybody.
No, absolutely not.
And it can be a really tough life when you're waiting for that next job, or you've spent a year working in a bar because nothing has come your way, or you feel like you have to volunteer to get your name out there.
Yeah.
So don't ever consider yourself a failure just because you make the decision that there is a different or better life that you can lead outside of theatre.
But also, I think don't always aim for that long-running show.
Yeah.
Like you've done. Go for the shorter ones. You'll learn a lot more. You'll and you get your name out there more. And you could do 5 or 6 short contracts, and or you could get on a long-running show that 6 months later decides it's going to close. Yeah. So don't always turn it down just because it's not what you think it is.
I do always say to people, if you get the opportunity to tour, please tour.
Definitely.
It might not be for you, and you might do one, and that might, because they're being away from home, it might not be right. But you learn so much when you're on tour. Because when you're stuck in Billingham and one of your lights breaks or your props break, you don't have London or one of the big cities there to nip out and get something to fix and thing. And you really have to learn how to figure things out for yourself and make the show happen. You don't have a hire company to go, this is broken, we're going to send it back, send us a new one. You have to figure out how to fix things. Because they might make it, but in a couple of days' time or something. It's just, it can be so much fun. I mean, we've touched on the amount of stories I have from touring is ridiculous, and a lot of really happy memories. I reached a point where it was not for me anymore, but I would say to anybody, if you get the opportunity to tour, please go and do it. Lovely.
Perfect thing to end on. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you to Nicki for that. I enjoyed that one, and I hope you enjoyed that one too. Very informative. Thank you so much for listening to this. Thank you so much for downloading it. It's been really great, really loving it so far, and long may it continue. Thank you to all the guests that have been on, and I shall see you all next week.